Okay, the mic is working now. So what I was saying, we need some kind of build, right? Which we can include one or more scenes and can include some type of configuration. Like in this case, we have this broken animation because this was an animation from Mixamo, but so okay, this is a retargeting problem. But wait, what are the keys here? Oh yeah, so it is kind of a blueprint of the grabbing animation and having some kind of axe or whatever object. Positioning can be a bit better. But let's say that this is some kind of mechanic or some kind of scene that we want to export, right, and have somebody play with it. So what we can do here is we can go to the build profiles, and first of all check the scene list, right? The scene list here will be empty at first, and we can either do the add open scenes, or we can just grab any scenes that we want from our whatever folder, etc., and bring them here. So this is also important often for kind of switching scenes, right? So some of them, I think I showed you kind of a couple ways to switch scenes, and some of them require this so-called build index, right? The build index is simply the number of the scenes that you have, this index here, 0, 1, 2, of the scenes that you have imported in your scene list, right? Okay. And then what do you need to do to build stuff? So first of all, you need a platform. Here I have installed the Android and Windows, but you see that you have various platforms, and these platforms basically are relative to the modules that you have installed in your Unity installation. So for example, in my Unity version here, I can go to manage add modules, and you can see that we have a bunch of stuff here, Mac, Linux, and so on. So if you need some other platform, you need to install these additional modules. But for us, Windows is going to be okay. It is, it is customary to also do a Mac build for if you want to kind of officially share your project, because a lot of people are using Mac, right? And you can see here, like if I want to add Mac, I can go install with Unity Hub, and I'll come here, and it will already have selected the specific module that I need for this type of build. Okay, but in your case, unless you're working on a Mac, this should be fine. So we have set up the scenes here. We have chosen the platform, or if it's Windows, you're working on Windows, is already going to be set up here. And then we have a couple of other things here. So I'm not going to go into detail about these options. Sometimes, like if you're testing stuff, you can create a so-called development build, which is a build that allows you to have like the console active in your build and see your messages and, you know, debug stuff, etc. So it has like a couple of options more than the normal builds, but for us, we're not going to use this. But what is more important are the player options, right? So the player settings. So we've set up the scene, we've set up the platform, and now we go to the player settings. And here we can do a couple of things. First of all, we can give our project some name, and please do this because otherwise it's going to be like default or you know, no name, whatever. So give it some name. And I'm sorry, this is actually the company name should be whatever. And this is okay. And here, if you are creating multiple versions, and this is a good idea for testing, right? You're exporting, you can even create new build every time you're adding some stuff just to test it out. You can increase this version, right? This is for versioning and so on. And what is more here, you can add a couple of, if you want to kind of have a little bit more polish, you can add your default icon here. You can add some specific resolution. Actually, for if you're doing this for each IO, I would suggest to actually maybe not do it full screen, but do it some kind of a window, maybe even some smaller resolution. So it's not, depending on what screen you're watching, it can be stretched or, I mean, there are additional things to consider for kind of seamless UI that is blended with any resolution. But if you're using UI, if not, it's not a problem. But yeah, if it's for each IO, I would create it like 800 by 600 window. Otherwise, it's probably should be okay if it's full screen. And yeah, you can do other cosmetics things like splash, etc. But I would say that these are, I guess, the company name and rather the product name. Maybe if you want a custom icon here, you can change them. And I would say that's it. So it's not nothing special really. And when you've set up all of this stuff, you can just press build and you give it some folder. Don't put it in your repo, because if you're doing a lot of builds, you actually don't want to save those ones to kind of version them probably. So let's see here. Give it some folder, and inside of this folder you press build. So sometimes you might get some errors or some problems that don't allow you to kind of create the build. And this is often because you have some kind of editor functionality. So maybe you've downloaded some script, it has some editor functionality that is specifically for the Unity engine, which has not been isolated. So there are some ways to, in a certain sense, isolate this functionality, which is not build related, but is engine or editor related. And this sometimes in packages, oh wait, for example, now we have some kind of error. So in packages, sometimes they don't isolate this stuff, but it might be also something else. So let's check out what's going on here. Oh yeah, exactly what I so we have some type of tool here that has, as you see here, it has some kind of editor window, and this is specifically editor functionality that hasn't been kind of isolated. And actually, I'm going to show you now how to do it, given that we have this error. I'm not sure what tool is this mesh. I don't remember. Maybe this is something that I downloaded. I wanted to show you, but I don't think we use this after all. But so how do you do this? So this is again, it's super simple, and it is a common error for builds and if you use a lot of packages. What you need to do is, if you see a script that is, usually you remember that we are extending mono behavior, right? This is our kind of library for game objects in the engine, right? But sometimes you can extend other things here. Our class can extend, like for example, editor window. And so if you see something editor related, you know that it's not meant to be, oops, in the build. And so what we can say here simply is this so-called processing directive. It's called if Unity editor, and I can just encapsulate the whole code in this kind of special if statement, right? And so what it means simply is that if we are not in the editor, you don't have to care about this code. So exclude this whole script if we are not running this or activating this inside of the editor itself. So if it's in a build, it will be excluded. And this is the simplest solution, but there can be other so-called leaks. We can see about that as well. And then we can retry this. So far, no errors here. Let's try again. These settings are maintained, the scene, the windows, etc. So I'm going to just go build again. And let's give it a second. Usually the first time that you create a build, it can take a bit longer. Oh, so, okay, we have a lot more of these errors. So I think I'm just going to find this package and delete it so we don't have to convert everything. So let me find it here fast. So it's some kind of mesh fragmenter. I don't think I need this one, so let's get rid of it. So yeah, the first time that you create a build, it can take a little bit more time because it's compiling all the shaders, the library. It's kind of, it may be changing resolutions and other stuff that are more compute heavy. So, but the next build should be way faster. So let's see if this was the only problematic tool here. Okay, it seems like so. So anyway, like I deleted the tool now because I really don't need it. But if you needed the whatever script, etc., you can just keep encapsulating stuff in this if Unity editor, right? This is the simplest solution. There are other ways as well, but so it's taking a bit of time now, like I said, because it's kind of compiling all these shaders. So let's give it a second. Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes there are also some shader problems that can, in this case, you see that the build was compiling the shaders and it finds some kind of too faulty parameters in this shade, in this specific water shader. Unfortunately, these ones are not very easy to fix. I mean, we have to edit the shader and it's simply a bit more difficult. So in this case, I mean, there are a lot of water shaders, so we can just exclude this one um, and then try to use another one which is compatible with this. Sometimes it's also because of the Unity version that maybe the shader is a little bit older and so on. So, by the way, I would suggest if you have like a running scene, try to do a build yourself, like even right now. So we can see if there is something problematic in your project, so I can help you to kind of get rid of it like I'm doing here now, because I as well haven't created a build because when you create a build the first time, it will need to compile the shaders, check the scripts and all this stuff, right? So it's not just the scene that you're creating, it's the whole project. So I would suggest try to follow the same steps now with any scene. Okay, it can be like a test scene, etc. Just so you can be sure that the build is working, so you know that you can build stuff at home. Or if you don't, I can help you to kind of manage the problems, right? Like I'm doing here with this one. Okay, and so let's try that again. Okay, so we have here some kind of stranger with, huh. Let me check a little bit the tools here. This should be Unity 2.0. Oh. Hmm. Okay, so are you trying to do this? Do you need me to repeat the steps? So, okay, I'll be there in a second. So just try to, like I said, you have the build profiles, you go to scene list, add your scene. Platform should be Windows. You can go to player settings on the top and add your kind of name, etc. And then give it a press build, give it a folder, and try to see what happens. And then we can clean up if there are some problems. Okay. All right. Lilian, are you trying to create a build? Is it working or? Okay. So yeah, I think I definitely have a problem with the with the Windows package, with the Windows module, because this is a very strange error. So yeah, I think I'm gonna switch to a newer version, which should be fixed. But right. So in the meantime, while you're trying this, and call me if you have some errors so we can clear them up. Something that we haven't talked a lot about is the audio, right? So I wanted to show you a couple of things about adding sound and audio in your game, because it's fairly easy to do so. Um, so basically, you can use sound in several ways in Unity, but it's always through the same kind of three main components, right? Then there are some, you can add some effects and stuff like this. Has somebody tried to put sound? Yeah. Giacomo, maybe GFANG. Okay. So what you can do here is basically you have the main components are the audio listener, which basically will listen for any other sounds, right? You have something called the audio source, and it's a simple component that will take a clip here and it will play it inside of your scene, right? So it will feed it to the listener, which it's kind of a renderer for sounds. And then you might have something like a mixer, audio mixer and such, if you have different type of audio sources, right? So let me give you a couple of examples. First, let me check if I actually have clips here. I think I've put some clips. Yeah, we have. And of course, you need some kind of audio clips first, so you can check them out. And I'll show you how to do either sound effects or kind of continuous general or also spatial sound. Okay, so I have here some kind of ambience effect, the crickets, which are nice. Some kind of other music, that's okay. And we have here various sound effects, I would say. Okay. So let's see, first of all, how to do some kind of global sound, right? The global sound will be the easiest one because you just need an audio source, and the audio source can be created also just adding an empty object. and just adding the component, so-called audio source here. Or right-click audio, and there is the audio source. Now for the global sound, you just need an audio source, and you need to give it some clips. So for example, let's put here the crickets, I guess. So we're gonna have this global ambience for the whole scene. And here you see a couple of settings, right? We have the play on awake, which is the same as the, for example, particle systems or VFX or other stuff that can be, have some activation. And in this case, it's gonna start when we start the scene. And so, yeah, I'm sorry, I keep pressing the mouse. And so nothing special here, right? We have these crickets, which, by the way, just run once, right? If we want them to loop, we have the loop option here. We have some kind of volume, pitch, and so on. Actually, can I restart this from the scene so we can check? So let me put it to loop. Okay. So we can manipulate these effects here. We have also some kind of panning here. All right. But this is not, of course, not the panning through which we're going to create the 3D effect later. So let's keep this maybe with a kind of a lower volume. This will be our global audio. Now, what if we want some kind of local audio effects, which are very common in in any kind of 3D spatial games? So to do this, I would create here an audio source, and maybe I'll give it some other sound. Was this music here? Okay, let's try with this one. And let's say that I want this music to be coming from the house, somewhere from inside of some space, right? So what I can do here is mainly manipulate this option here, which is called spatial blend, right? So this spatial blend here is what makes a sound flat versus 3D localized. So let's say that I want this to be fully 3D localized sound. And we have a couple of options here. For the fully 3D sound, you see that we have the spread, right? The spread is kind of how far we have to be to hear the sound. So it's kind of a little bit of bleeding here. And of course we have also the area. So the area of the sound, maybe let's make this a lot smaller so we can see it here. So we will have some minimal area and some mean distance and some max distance. And the spread basically is going to be how drastic, how radical we can hear stuff as soon as we, are close to this border, something like this. So let's say that I'm going to put this at half, and I'm going to put this a little bit outside of the house, something like this, right? And then we should be good to go here. I'm just checking stuff. Maybe we want, so of course it's also important, do we want to play it on awake? Do we want to trigger it in some other case? Do we want it to loop? So let me place the loop here, and let's check this out. Oh, sorry, I keep pressing the mouse. So here we are not. If we want it to be like more discernible, we can just increase the spread to the maximum, so it will be just spreading in the whole space, right? So that is more, let's say, the basics of the 3D sound. We need the spatial blend here. We need the, how spread it is, how much it leaks, and we need some kind of distance, area distance. And you can increase also this minimal distance if you want the sound to be very discernible at the center as well. Right. And so these are like two use cases, global and kind of world space type. global and world space position sound. I was explaining about sounds and how you can position them in environment and so on. And then we have something that is the audio mixer group. Of course, if we have multiple sounds, it's a good idea to kind of have this mixer group. And what it is, it's basically an asset. So for example, if I want to create one, I will come here, I will go to, so in a folder, it's not a scene object, it's a separate asset. So I'm going to go to create audio and then the audio mixer, right? And inside the audio mixer, sorry, you see that I will have some kind of, I'll have the channels here. And so what I need to do here on my sounds are basically add each sound to a new channel, right? Oops. Wait, no. Wait, they change this, I think. Yeah, so for example, here I can add these effects to the master channel of this audio mixer. And an added kind of benefit to this is that I can also manipulate here the, or rather add different effects to these audio sounds, right? For example, let me actually start this and see if I can do this in runtime. Okay, so we see here the volume. And if, no, actually, I'm sorry, I cannot, because this is a so-called scriptable object, so we cannot actually manipulate it here. But for example, I can add something like a distortion, I can add something like a chorus, and if some of you are kind of more musically inclined, you recognize these various effects, right, and maybe how to manipulate them. But let's say that I want like some kind of distortion with with a lot of feedback and maybe a lot dry, and I'm sorry, the chorus and distortion is a bit higher. So yeah, we're gonna get some kind of sound that both of these sounds, now that they're in the same mixer, will get the same effects applied, of course. Okay, you get the idea. And the final thing that is kind of a nice to have for these, let's say, spatial sounds is a so-called reverb zone, right? So reverb is always a nice effect, right, in audio processing, and it's usually the last thing you add because it's very powerful. And here, basically, you can add the reverb zone. Works exactly like, I mean, like other zones, but it will affect all the audio sources that are inside of the zone, right? And this affection will be based on this slider here, reverb zone mix, right? So how much from the reverb zone that's currently in this location do you want to bleed to kind of let in your audio, right? So let me decrease this a little bit. And you can choose also different type of presets here. So let's do something with a lot of reverb so we can actually hear this. Maybe auditorium, I guess, or something like this. And on our local audio, let me call this local audio source, we are going to just crank up this reverb zone mix here. And let's hear how it sounds. So I don't know, you probably don't hear it because of my, So from these speakers, it's not super, you cannot hear very well, but there is a reverb it's applied on this audio. It's not super strong effect. Maybe we can make this a bit stronger with the mixer here, adding also some reverb to, if you want really to add stuff also from the effects here. Or rather make it stronger. Wait a second, where is that? Actually, no, not with this. But yeah, anyway, so okay, no, never mind. So this is about this kind of spatial sound, you know, using these zones, reverb zone, global or local audio, and the most importantly the spatial blend here, which is people often forget if they want to have spatialized sound, use this slider here. Now, the other way to use sounds in Unity is for sound effects, and these are basically using the same components, but in a slightly different way, right? Where we are going to have, let's say, some kind of audio source. I'm going to call this sound effects, SFX audio source. And here I might load one of these sound effects, and always remember that you can actually select the clips, and on the bottom here you have these stripes that you can click and then preview stuff. Okay, so this is yeah, you can preview these sounds here like animations or other stuff. And let's say that I want to add, I've added this effect here to this sound, to this audio source. And let's say that I want to trigger this. Maybe it would have been better to actually have the, to maybe do this in a different scene where I actually have some kind of mechanic. Let me check maybe the combat. Sorry, I think I deleted something that was important in this scene. Let me check. Maybe, wait, let's try to do this scene here with the observer pattern that is here. Okay, so here we had this spawning of this observer pattern, right? So we use this observer pattern to spawn different objects and kind of add some mechanics, some action to all of these, you know, instantiated objects. And so something that we can add here, if we wanted to, might be to have some kind of sound effect that accompanies either the objects. Maybe we can do something that where when the objects hit the ground, they will kind of trigger sound effect, or even just when you go here to a trigger, just so I can show this to you a bit faster. But it's super simple. Basically, again, we have the I'm going to use one of these. It should be fine. Okay. Seconds. All right. And then we have the trigger zone. Something that you can do is simply on the audio source itself, you can disable the play on awake, right? We don't want this to play when we start the scene, and then we can just drag this audio source somewhere in an event, basically, and we can say audio source play, and this will trigger our sound effects every time we trigger this action through whatever this is, trigger zone in this case. And so this is kind of the easiest way to do this. A bit of a more sophisticated way is using maybe multiple audio sources, and they start empty, and then we can write like a little logic. This is how it's usually done. You have like a pool of audio sources, and then you just fill them with a given effect, because in a game you might have like 80 or 100, whatever, a lot of different sound effects, right? And then you don't want to have like audio sources for all of them. But if it's a smaller thing, you can definitely do it. For example, one of these, let me find the, there it is. So for example, these cubes here that we use them to, with the observer pattern to kind of listen for this push event. And we can basically say also to all of them that maybe each of them will have their own audio source, right? You can pair audio sources to different objects. And so each of them will have their own kind of pop or whatever other sound effects. And when you apply this event to them, if they're listening, they will also trigger their own sound effects, right? This is a kind of a derivative benefit of using this pattern. So like you see, I just have the prefab, and on the prefab, I'm adding an audio source, and I'm linking this to the response to whatever event it's listening to, audio source play. And it's, of course, not going to be playing on awake. And in this case, given it's a sound effect, it's not spatialized. We don't need this one. Maybe we don't need the reverb zone as well, right? And so now if I play the game here, okay, so now of course you hear this as one, but it's basically all these cubes are playing a sound, their own sound effect. And that's also a way to do it. You can have also multiple kind of, each object can have its own sound effect and so on, depending on what you're trying to achieve. So this is, let's say, the basics. Yeah, I would say if you have the time, try to add some. There are a couple of sound effects libraries that are free on the asset store, so you can definitely explore them if you're so inclined. All right, so is this more or less clear? Okay, so right. Nurjan, how is it going with your project? Did you try to implement the shooting mechanic? And I'm sorry, come again? All right, so anybody try to do the build and they have problems? Do you think is it building for you or is it okay? Is it okay to build? Yeah. Okay. Did you try to do it or okay? Okay. Let me know if you have any errors additionally. So, and I think I will try with this new version. So this one, this one. Right. Yeah, I'm reopening this. So, one other thing that I wanted to talk about is, let's say, when you kind of present the build, right? It has to have like some minimal element that make it, let's say, presentable. And we've already covered the main menu, right? If you remember that your game has to at least have the possibility to quit or restart a level and pause and pause or pause and resume, etc. One other thing that's kind of standard and it's nice to have is some kind of a splash or starting screen, right? So given that we already know how to change the scenes, which we can review it now, I can show you something about the starting screen. And I can also show you something more about the .twin library. That is something that we're going to use a bit more next year because it's super useful to create basically any kind of animations. And but we can use it through an inspector editor. So I'll show you now as soon as the project opens. And so what we can do here is create just some kind of a simple starting screen where of course, you might have either some information, maybe a little narration, whatever you want. And ultimately, you're going to have like a start button that will actually lead you to your game. And maybe just to exercise the scenes, we can to the scene switching, etc. We can create this in a separate scene, so you have at least 2 scenes in your final project, right? So I'll show you this this idea here. And Lilana, did you find some new assets or some things you were looking for? Mm. Mm. No, you can. It depends on the format that it exports in, because in Sketchfab it depends on the. I think there are various formats. Some of them are not supported by you. You need to kind of go through maybe. Okay, I'm not sure that we are not the build that the Jews. You can, I think you can already like in Blender or something, and then export it as yeah. Yeah, something else. I'm not sure that this. If the pictures are not inside, I think. Huh? Oh, yeah, you need to apply them. I'm not sure, so I'm not in the 3D of my team, but I'm not sure if the UV maps are in the model. So if they are in the model, you can just create like material in Blender, and the kind of texture should be fine. So it's just okay, sure. Okay, you just need to find a way to get there, but I'm not sure if it's there is something there or there is, it should be a like always. You mean the event? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's not shoot to prefab. It's called script object, right? It's like a data object in your folder. It's not a real object. Then maybe I'll explain something a little bit more about the script object. Maybe there are maybe it's a lot of so you go with the prefab program is you can have like a version of them program that will tell you each of the device. Retraining? Yeah. But what do you want? I'm sorry. What is it? Just anything. This is not really what you don't know. All right. Now I think you just need one. I mean, it depends on what you're trying to trigger, right? But usually you need like one generic event or something. That's the whole idea. That you don't need like unique events. But you need. So, for example, let's say if you have something with damages here, you can just say one damage event, and everybody that listens to something can move like some explosion and they're close by the damage or so but yeah, the event is going to be just one single. But like if you can give me some example, maybe I can make like I can give a copy of some example of the approach. Okay. All right. All right. So let's see what we can do about this splash screen, and then we'll check again on the builds because it seems that there is a kind of strange error that's shared here that haven't seen on other versions. Not sure why, but anyway. So we're talking about the starting screen, and I wanted to show you something a bit more about the .twin, which can help you kind of create much cooler UI kind of entrances and stuff. So first of all, let's check if we have here the actual .twin. By the way, do I? Wait. Oh yeah, there is. It should be found in the Demi Giant is called the creator, and we need this .twin Pro. Can you check if you have this specific package, or you have some other package in your? It's fine in plugins, and then Demi Giant, and then you should have this folder here called .twin Pro. I think I gave you this version, but it's so try to check. Not the Pro. Okay. Right. So yeah, in this case, let me give you the Pro because again, this is I think probably now there are a couple of probably newer libraries. These are, do you know about twinning? So maybe if you've learned animations someplace, right? Twinning is basically just it comes from in between, right? And these are basically the so-called interpolation between two frames. So in animation, the animation would be composed of multiple frames or keyframes or whatever or sprites. Whatever type of animation you're doing. And so you probably know about these, let's say, can I find it here? Yeah, these very famous, the bow stretch animations, right? So basically the twin will be the each segment, like each step of this animation. And basically it's called interpolation because it's a gradual change along like one variable. It can be like stretching, it can be something else, cover, anything. And this gradual change between one value and the other value can be done with curves. So it can be, of course, linear, so it can be straight. So if we have, so imagine some kind of a maybe fade, right, or cover fade or something like the cover. The object is invisible and then becomes visible. It can be just. It can be, however, it can have other curve. It can start slower and then go to full kind of visibility, right? It can go to half visibility very fast and then slowly become fully visible, right? So this kind of how it interpolates, how it gets from value 1 to value 2 can be defined with these curves, right? And this is what these twinning libraries provide, right? They provide some kind of curve-based interpolation, technically speaking. So, but of course they build other stuff on top of this. So let me give you here, and this specific library, I think it's one of the most used assets in the asset store. And the creator is an Italian game designer. It's called Demigiant or Daniele Giardini. And he's a little bit in the shadows, but he's like a complete genius. He's done amazing stuff. So check his work out. And he gave me, we have like his explicit permission to use the paid version of this asset in class. So that's why I can share it with you. Otherwise, we would use the free version. But the paid version has like a couple of things that are a bit nicer to use. So let me update it real quick, and I'm gonna share this additional thing with you. Just a second. And unfortunately, this asset also has like an even more kind of pro version, which he refuses to release, which is even cooler. But yeah, he's a solo developer, so maintaining stuff and working on project is very, very difficult. So sometimes, yeah, people choose not to do stuff, not to. Actually, no, wait. Oh yeah, it has an update. I was thinking if I updated it. Yeah, so let me do it here. And so what this package will allow us to do is I'm saying it's for UI, but it's actually for anything else. And in all the scripts, like in all the actions that I gave you, like especially the scale, transform, etc. I'm actually using Twin programmatically inside, but here I'm going to show it to you through a very simple kind of package, and it will allow us to do stuff like scale, move stuff around, but it in a kind of a much faster way than having to animate them with the animation clips, right? So that's why, for example, when you compose some kind of UI and you want to make it a bit nicer, very fast, that's probably the best option. So, yeah, almost there. And of course, when you import this, do it. Do the setup, even if you have the base version. Okay, it's taking a bit of time. Not sure why. It's usually fast, but let's give it a second. Yeah, so Nurjan, for your question, I think like if you wanted to do the thing that you showed me last time where you go through some area and then the enemies like become active or something, you actually need just one event, right? I would kind of pair one event to one, one event, right? Just activating something, etc. And then just everybody listens to that single event. All right, so let's check if we have errors. Okay, we don't have errors. Let me check if the component is here that I'm actually looking for. Yeah, it's called .twin animation. Okay, very good. All right, so let me share this package with you and I'll show you how it works. Actually, I'll share the whole folder and we'll probably be able to update what you're missing. So export. Okay. Right. Actually, here. Okay, there we go. So let me share this. Oh, right, that's it. And I'll show you this fast, and then we'll take a break in about 10 minutes. So mm. Okay, so please download this package and import it in your. it should go directly to your um, plugins folder. Let me know if you have any conflicts or otherwise. But even if you have the base version, you should be fine because it's probably will just update what you're missing. By the way, yeah, Liliana, I remember because I wanted to like use one of the old scenes for this start screen. But in this scene here, we used something because you were asking last time how to do the sun, right? Liliana, Liliana, you were asking last time how to do the sun, right? And here in this scene, I don't know if you worked on this, but we use, besides this kind of skybox version of the sun, we use also just, I think this is just a material with, uh, yeah, a missing material with some spotlight, of course, to kind of have the area as well. But maybe for your sun it's not important. But yeah, I think it's just an missing material with very high intensity here inside, right? So I think, and with a lot of bloom on the post-processing, yeah. So yeah, I think something like this can work.
Is there a way to make the one object and not all of them, or not?
No, I mean not normally, like not here from the. Let me think. I mean, no, you would need some kind of custom shader because bloom is applied on top of your scene, right? On top of basically the what the camera is rendering. So any light source basically will be included in the bloom. So I mean, technically you can maybe use a but if the camera is not inside and it's the same stuff. So if you can use like a local volume, right? So because this here is global, okay, this is for everything, but you can use volume just in an area, you know, just in a cube. But in order to see, and then you can place bloom inside, only inside of this cube, right? But the camera has to be inside for it to render. If it's outside of the cube, I mean the camera, the player, whatever, you're not gonna see the bloom. So it's yeah. So probably it's not what you want anyway. All right, so let me know if you have imported this package, the Dotwin Pro. So assuming you have imported this plugin here, you don't have any problems. So let's try to create our kind of starting scene here. And for the starting, I usually like to do something like having a little camera effect and always, of course, actually